All right, everybody, we're doing Remnant Blade today. Author Mike Vincent, narrator Michael Geary, and runtime is 12 hours and 9 minutes. For the summary, please enjoy my beautiful writing. Many millennia have passed since the Eighth have acted as a cohesive legion. Instead, those of the Midnight Clad have splintered into warbands that roam both the warp and real space in an effort to sow fear and terror in the hearts of all those they come across. One such of these warbands are the Blades of Atrocity, led by Dalchian Rassach, known to his murderkin as the Skintaker. In a joint raid against an Adeptus Mechanicus Forgeworld called Osimandius, Dalchian and his Blades of Atrocity are betrayed in a power grab by Gorelord Thalisicus to seize greater influence among other traitor Astartes warbands seeking plunder and glory. The betrayal results in the deaths of dozens of Night Lords in Dalchian's warband. With no other option, Dalchian must now serve a master that saw to his loss of command and the death of almost half a company of Night Lords while attempting to regain the loyalty of his Remnant Blade and possibly secure their future legacy. For characters, so Dalchian Rassach is definitely the POV. It switches, it gives different, it cycles to different characters. There are chapters where it's like Saurian's turn to do the thing, and there are other chapters where it's Gorelord Thalisicus from his perspective, and et cetera, et cetera. But for the most part, the majority of the chapters are from Dalchian's perspective, and I figure I'm just going to read an excerpt, and then I'll, finish off by kind of describing like who he is and what you're getting out of this, and blah, blah, blah. It's probably the more fleshed out of the characters that I'm going to go. A lot of them, anyway, I'm not going to, let's just move on. So Dalchian, his Mark V power armor bore its centuries of existence with ill grace, the ink dark blue of it marred by scars. Each piece was silver-edged with razor-barb corrosion blackening parts of the metal. A baroque power pack hunched between his shoulder blades like a whispering gargoyle, and from it hung a bleak testament to his atrocity. A pleated curtain of hides cured and tailored with grotesque care, each a different shade of discoloration, each the pelt of a human victim. Some slaves, some warlords, every one of them had been alive when their slaying began. Some had even survived its completion, a cloak of victory and depravity. He held his helm in one hand, the Crimson Islands is dim for now, a pair of heraldic wings sweeping up on either side of the crown. Each pinion was a Venus ruby color, but not feathered, rather membranous as the Chiropteran hunters of Night's Dark. His garb suggested the horror that he could inflict, but it was his face that promised it. Sallow skin drawn tight across his cheekbones, and eyes so deep set to be utterly black, like beads of jet. Half a scalp of dark hair fell like a veil, the other half shaven to the skin, his hive-ganger lectus fading below the pallor. Dalchian Rassach, the Skintaker, commander of the Night Lords warband, the Blades of Atrocity, born in the Night Spires of Tethaxes. So he's kind of a dick. Like, there's a lot of inspiration from the Omnibus, because that's kind of like where the Night Lords get a lot of their characterization from, since it's like an older omnibus at this point. Unlike that book, there's not a lot of redeeming qualities, but like Dalchian is not that. Like, if you're looking for a redeeming quality within him, he is just not. So think Talos, but like Talos's douchier younger brother. Moving on to Zorian. All I can really say about Zorian, because he is exceedingly flat, he starts the book out as Dalchian's like right-hand man. He's a bit more understanding. He's kind of in support of Dalchian still. But all you really get is kind of like a description of him. So, long-limbed and skeletally gaunt, a shade taller than Dalchian, his face was thin, a stretched thing of ashen skin and close-cropped hair. To Crouton. Introduced fairly early in the book, he is a berserker that is seemingly becoming closer than any of the others with the Crimson Slaughter, both in manner and in fighting style. His armor may be midnight clad still, but all the warband bound to Dalchian, it is Crouton that seeks indomitable strength in leadership alongside purpose, even if action will bring death. His straightforward nature serves to shine a light on Dalchian's inadequacies for us as the reader, but also justify why the rest of the Blades of Atrocity don't see Dalchian as a worthy leader anymore. There's Sarios, pronunciations. His alabaster pate, hidden by a cowl with cruel eyes glinting in the depths of a shadow. Jakaga, heavy gunner and very large. Dagatus, tallest of the midnight clad. There's Galith, Velet, Angheltris. Angheltris does have a lot more going on with him, but he is absolutely a side character, and while he does kind of reappear in a few scenes, he's Angheltris. I don't really know like what you want from me right now. Keth Na, and then Alakro and Kiumsha. Kiumsha, there is at least something I can talk about. He's a chief apothecary, but what's cool with him is he wasn't actually professionally trained. There's kind of like a little blurb that describes how like he basically got introduced to like equipment, found it cool, and then he started just kind of like messing around with it, and now he's gotten really good basically as a apothecary. Not probably really good with a grain of salt, because I don't think a non-professionally trained apothecary is going to be, like you can have your hobby astronomer be surprisingly good, but not it as good or better than, you know where I'm going with this. He's self-trained, so he might be like adequate at keeping them alive, and he is their only medic, but I wouldn't place him like way up there as like, oh, I can do head surgery because I am that awesome. But yeah, that pretty much rounds us out with all the Night Lords that exist inside of this novel. There's Theta Ibriel 74, probably everyone's favorite character, if I'm going to be honest. Again, I haven't looked at any reviews, but like anyway, I'm just going to stick with the script. So a mid-level tech priest in the Templum Capitalis on the planet of Osimandius. As a prisoner of the 8th Legion, he had swapped masters in exchange for not being killed, and to safeguard some sacred data stacks. Ambitious and adaptable, Ibriel seems unconcerned with who he aligns himself with as long as he gets to collect new knowledge. He's not outright heretical at first, but even when he gets introduced to demonic things, it doesn't fluster him for more than like a moment before he just gets back to work and like starts experimenting and does stuff. He reminds me a lot of like Dalchian in the Night Lords Omnibus, and that's going to come up a lot. I know I'm going to be referencing the Omnibus a lot, but there's a lot of influence here. So not necessarily because they are alike, but in the relationship that forms between Dalchian and Ibriel, it echoes the same relationship that happens between Talos and Dalchian. So it's a tangent, but my 2 cents here is that a tech priest performs such an integral task that the Night Lords can't do anything but grow close to such an asset, since they can't torture or kill such a valuable asset. So what ends up happening is a begrudging or unwelcome, but also kind of welcome bond that forms between a tech priest that doesn't seem to mind or notice being almost killed all the time, and the Night Lords who can only like I said, begrudgingly shrug and admit that they need their armor and other like war gear repaired by someone halfway competent. So Ibriel reprises a lot and plays a huge role in the book, and his personality definitely shines through like the machine. So there's a lot of, he's the best of both worlds, but he's not everywhere in this book. So in there just enough to add some personality, but not enough to be super tired. And he also isn't like the Marvel version of like comedic relief, so that's nice. Gorelord Thalisicus, so he's the commander of the Crimson Slaughter. He wears a firm trimmed cloak of rich indigo, and his armor is bronze trimmed, which stands out prominently on his red armor. His head he keeps bald and has had it ritually scarified. In his past life, Thalisicus was in the Crimson Sabers Adeptus Astartes chapter before they fell. The Crimson Slaughter is its own standalone thing, but attached to them are other warbands that fight alongside them. So there's the Fly Lords, the Abyssal Kindred, the Blades of Atrocity, the Warp Ghosts, and even the Sons of Malice. There's Erdamas Grinch. He's commander of the Fly Lords, and he wears a Terminator suit of power armor. There's Vilius. He's a bone sage. He's an emissary to the enigmatic Warp Ghosts. And then Zirklon, he's the Sons of Malice. He's like the only... I mean, there's more, but like most of these, like the Fly Lords, the enigmatic Warp Ghosts, and the Sons of Malice, they really only get mentioned like once. But it's cool to have like kind of little small things thrown in there, just because it really does kind of reinforce and flesh out like what's already in the setting and kind of make it feel more like it actually exists instead of, everything new every single time. So, and then lastly, Jathok. I love that his first name is Lyle. It's so great. Sorcerer Lord of the Abyssal Kindred, born on Nega Viltra among the shrines and cathedrals of an imperial world. Initially, he was brought into being an Astartes by the Ardent Spears, who wanted him to be part of the Librarius. The Thousand Sons conducted a raid and made him in their image. Of the antagonists, Jathok is the most compelling. There's a lot of angles that he plays throughout the events that pretty much happen in this book. What I like most about him is that he is shown to be effective in combat and like in his so he's not just like it's like a Tywin where he's just good at what he does, which is nice because I really do not enjoy seeing like the bumbling idiot villain archetype where I'm like, you're evil but you're really bad at what you do. And not like Skeletor, where it's like you kind of have to make him bumbling because all of his schemes are destroy everything. Like literally, if you succeed, the entire universe is gone. It's like he's a normal. His stakes and what his schemes are like, if he succeeds, that's fine. The setting won't end, so we can let him succeed. It's great. So it just. Yeah, anyway, moving on, because I could really branch off into a tangent about that. Homework. All I can recommend to you before reading this is to read a Night Lord's like lore primer of some kind, like at the very least, just to get a good idea of what their Legion is all about, or even better, you can read the short story by Mike Vincent, who also wrote, basically, Dalchian Rassach is a reprising character of this author, and his short story is Blades of Atrocity. So, yeah, if that sounds familiar, it's because you should. It's because that's what the warband's name is. And the book is called Remnant Blade because of the events of the Blades of Atrocity. So yeah, the short story, like I said, Blades of Atrocity, so it should be easy enough to find. Outside of that, you really don't need to seek out the Night Lord's Omnibus or the Red Tithe, which Red Tithe is another book, to get what's like going on here. Even though those are both like excellent Night Lord's reads, it's just not, you don't have to do that. As far as does this become homework, well, from what I can tell by the ending, I would say it isn't right now because it's like the first book, and right now it's a standalone book. But if there's ever a sequel or this becomes like a series, then yes, this does kind of become homework. Lore. So this is gonna feel like I'm just like throwing stuff at a wall, because it kind of is. Like, it's just kind of a list of things that I found cool about the book. So yeah, anyways, so black ships. For those that don't know, these ships are the means by which the Imperium gets psychers to Terra to feed to the Astronomicon, or those psychers that are collected are selected to go through the sanctioning and training process to then be assigned to Inquisitors or astrotelepathic acquirers, or like literally think of any number of like roles you think a psyker would be good for in the setting, like battle line psychers for the Astra Militarum, or they even like attach them sometimes into like Mechanicus stuff because they like to mess around with psychers too. So yeah, like the black ships are the fleet that collects all these guys. These ships make up the single largest contiguous fleet element in the Imperium. So, fun fact, they are stocked with highly specialized crew, which includes its lower deck members, which is really, really important to throw in there. If you read about like the normal like Imperial Navy, like everything below like crew that is rating level like and above, those are like competent. I wear brocades and have a uniform and like I'm awesome. But like everyone below that is basically just peasantry. Like they're just there to like do literally one thing. Like there's the Silent King novel. They had greasers. They're just people that walk around the ship and just like grease hinges and other things that need grease. Like we're talking like you're the specialist of something super mundane. And that's what the lower deck members are. So when I say that the black ships actually have like all of their crew are highly trained, I mean it, because of their job. They can't have just like peasantry. They need to like have mentally sound and competent people doing literally everything. So I guess if you wanted to serve in the fleet and I guess have some sort of level of like competency, then go black ships, but you'll feel like garbage all the time because of the null field. Anyways, that isn't to mention also the Oblivion Knights and others that hail from the Sisters of Silence orders, because there are sisters all over those ships because their cargo is, psychers. In more specific ways, the ship gets very fleshed out. They have a psi-reactive inner and outer hull that is incredibly effective at fixing itself. And yes, I do mean like mending itself. It's really cool. Like they'll use like a melt-a-bomb to try and get in, and then it won't even break through the hole, and then it'll just start fixing itself. It is very neat. The machine spirit of the ship is suggested to also be a synthetic animus that is highly reactive to psychers, which is also really cool because usually you just kind of jack in via a throne, similar to a Titan. Definitely not a Titan, though. I know it's not a Titan. It's a ship. But they have similar, like, machine spirits where the pilot of the actual ship will, like, jack in and have to, like, wrestle with the machine spirit to, like, make it do what you want, basically. They aren't the ones that control it, but having, like, a machine spirit that's willing to go, like, that isn't fighting you and making systems kind of suck more than, because there are, like, what I'm trying to say is that there isn't just one single pilot. There is still, like, a deck crew, and they all have stuff to do. Like, there's still someone manning, like, a weapons station, and so on and so forth. So don't get that twisted. The people that hook in and have to wrestle with the machine spirit, it's more like to make the ship more effective than anything else. Because, yeah, like, the machine spirit can, like, shut down certain systems and blah, 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 but it doesn't actively, like, do everything by itself. You know, like, you still have to kind of, like, anyway, I'm moving on because I will definitely get myself into a rabbit hole of talking about machine spirits. That is a deep hole that I really like to talk about because the Dark Age of Technology, baby, it's still here. You should 100% read the Lords of Mars. It's a three-book trilogy that has a character. The old, like, if you read Iron Rain, or Reign of Iron, not Iron Rain. If you read Reign of Iron, you can read the Lords of Mars and then Gods of Mars, and then there's a trilogy. I'm just forgetting the middle book. And you find out really cool things about the machine spirit and kind of, like, the presence of these really powerful AI and, like, data infrastructure that's within the Imperium. That, anyway, but this isn't about that. This is Remnant Blade. So, anyways, back to black ships. I had no idea that they were built in such a labyrinthine and, like, dangerous way. Part of me thinks that not all of them are built the same. Like, this is kind of like a special example. So I wonder why this ship is so special, or maybe the black ships are being refitted since the galaxy has gotten more, like, dangerous. Since the Psychic Awakening, due to the Great Rift exposing the warp to more people than ever, there has been a corresponding uptick in the amount of Psychers born, and those that already possessed Psyker powers have seen them become enhanced. Additionally, the word bearers have started to target black ships. So, with everything going on, I wonder if this is the reaction the black ship fleet has had to, like, the new threats and, like, the darkening of, or I guess, the more dangerous everything has become, the more outfitted these ships are becoming, because they still have to make their runs. You know what I mean? So how traitors recruit and get new Astartes. So for the longest time, it wasn't, like, super spelled out how the renegades and traitor legions got new recruits. But in this book, there were a few scenes that kind of dialed in and spelled out some renegades and traitors create new Astartes. The cryo-frozen children on the Ichthyos. Then there's, like, Darkness Trials on the Prison World in the Red Tithe book. The Thousand Suns stealing aspirants from an Astartes chapter. That's a reference to when, like, Jathok used to be an Astartes aspirant, and then the Thousand Suns were like, yoink, you're a really promising psyker. We need you. And then the Reign of Iron book had the Iron Warriors secure a massive store of gene seed from the Imperial Fists, which inspired the Dead Sky Black Sun book on Medrengard, and also created a bunch of like, cool Iron Warriors, namely one, actually, not a bunch. But Fabius Bile was also able to track down a lost store of gene seed kept by Trazyn on his library worlds. And then, yeah, anyway, it's stuff like that is, like, truly interesting, and I'm glad that small but critical things of the setting are being explored. It makes the setting feel more, like, thought out and, like, real and kind of, like, lived in. The neurophagic rifle was also really neat. I love the idea of, like, a dart that can have the same effect of a null field on things, but much more concentrated. Seeing old and niche weapons like chronobombs and psych-out grenades is also, like, is a good touch to add when it comes to fighting the highly trained and specially equipped order like the Sisters of Silence. Like, I'm so glad that they didn't break in and they just, like, everyone just order, like, stocked with just your classic hell guns and plasma guns, because it's like you're fighting the Sisters of Silence. They literally get supplied from specialized forge worlds and receive support from the Custodes. They're going to have special equipment. There's a reason they have such good armor and equipment. I should clarify specifically that they have good equipment these days, and it's not like in past tense. So as in the post-Gilliman era, because yes, in the Chris Wright based like in Terra novels and the Beast Arises series, you kind of see how bedraggled and like ill-equipped the Sisters of Silence were before Gilliman actually came back, because they were kind of forced out of the Imperium unofficially. We still don't know why. I mean, there's a really good idea of why, but moving on. Dalchian goes to meet with Ibriel. He's in the middle of sorting through salvage from the recent battle. Ibriel has a penitent engine, just kind of like hung up. Among other things, he presents an excruciatum locus, a device that administers and regulates pain to the person that gets put into the penitent engine. The pain regulator ordinator, a lot of Mechanicus stuff right now, is traced back to the to have originated from Nostromo. To those unfamiliar with Nostromo, that is the kind of the home world of Conrad Kurz and to like the Night Lords as we know them in the modern day setting. They did have their Crusade era before they met Conrad Kurz, but post Conrad Kurz, Nostromo was the recruiting ground of the Night Lords. And it's like this horrible place that was basically run by organized crime to the extreme that Conrad Kurz had to basically become Primarch Batman and kill everything that did crime until they just kind of got the memo to not do crime anymore. So like he just spent like years killing people and being like, I will kill anybody who even steals a fruit cake from their mom. Like, it's crazy. I say it's crazy because he is literally insane, not because it's crazy, because the setting is just full of I'll kill you for stealing fruitcakes. Probably not fruitcakes. It's more like blaspheming or something like that. Anyway, the last thing I wanted to kind of toss in there is the possessed Hellbrute. I just really liked it. That's such a good touch. The fact that a word bearer's dreadnought is like a gajillion years old. There's no pilot anymore. Ibriel was like, wait, there's no pilot? Then what's doing the thing? And then Neritza has to explain to him like what possession was, and then Ibriel was like, oh my god, there's a demon in here. And it's just, yeah, it's a Hellbrute that's just possessed by a demon. It's so great, because usually you have like I've seen Hellbrutes before, right? And they are usually dreadnoughts or Terminators or, you know, etc. Hellbrutes aren't necessarily, they don't have to be dreadnoughts. They just, most of the time they are. And they've just been so viscerally mutated by the powers. But that doesn't mean that they're all possessed. That just means that they have been mutated. So usually there's a pilot that's been alive for a gajillion years at this point and has been heavily mutated, and their entire like dreadnought is barely recognizable as a dreadnought, and et cetera, et cetera. My point is, they're usually not possessed. This one was. It's very cool. I'm excited. Be excited with me. Who's it for? All right, so yeah, we're moving on to a whole new section. Who's it for? So fans of the Night Lords will get a lot out of this. The characterization of the 8th Legion is spot on. For those Warhammer readers that don't like a lot of downtime in their narratives, this will also scratch like the fast-paced action itch, because this story, for the most part, is one thing after another with very little in the way of downtime between like stuff actually happening. That being said, if you are wanting some like deep Chris Wright levels of politicking between warbands, or like Aaron Dembski Bowden levels of character depth, then you'll get a bit disappointed. Not like super royally so, but for the most part, there's not a lot of explaining that goes into the guys that wear cloaks of dried and tanned human pelts this time around. If you're wanting a self-contained story that wraps up pretty neatly, then this is a pretty good recommendation. And you won't actually be very disappointed. So far, if you liked the summary and the who's it for is going for you, then yeah, it's a pretty good bet you're going to like it. But last but not least, we have the review. So it's been a long time since the Night Lords have had their own long-form novel. There was the Red Tithe, where they were the unfortunate antagonists of the Carcharodons, but largely, the Night Lords haven't been around to make the night their hunting grounds for a few years now. Mike Vincent debuts them in style, first with the Blades of Atrocity short story, and then following on with that with the Remnant Blade, which is a continuation of Dalchian's story. For the review, I do want to start with a cons first, because ending on a good note is more fun than ending on a bitter one. So, and I want to preface with, I did enjoy this book, okay? And it's not even like a extremes thing. These are just things that stuck out to me in the book that are on the weaker side of versus the pros, which are on the stronger side. I just want to emphasize that, because sometimes people, like, I'll have someone beta read this for me to like see if I've written just kind of like legible review that comes off as anything, and then they'll be like, "Oh my god, did you like this book or not?" And I'm just like, it's not like for the cons I'm sitting here seething the entire time, and then for the pros I'm like jumping in the air. Like, it's not, the pendulum isn't swinging in such extreme ways. I'm just saying I have to pick up something for the cons, and I have to pick up something for the pros. I don't want to come out of a book thinking zero thoughts. I feel like that is a mark of a very bad book if you come out of it being like, I don't actually know what to say. So yeah, when I say cons, I just mean these are the weaker parts, not in so much so that this book is like the worst thing in the world. But yeah, I just thought I would put in a PSA or something before continuing. But yeah, anyways, so for starters, and this is a very common thing in Warhammer books, but there is too big of a cast. I feel like I say that a lot, but when I say it's common, it's because it is. So there's just too many. I mean to say that there wasn't enough time given to anyone for them to become like their own person. Outside of knowing what armor they wore and how they fought, there wasn't much going on with anyone in this book. Flat characters aren't actually a deal breaker, though, and for a first novel in what could be a series, the foundations are set for something more in subsequent novels. A lot of the book's events also felt like a lot of and then instead of therefore, which made things feel a bit repetitive. For example, we see a ship's crew get retrained like twice. Like, we see one get retrained on the Red Galentia multiple times. And then so it's stuff like that where it's like the same thing happens numerous times where you're like, okay, cool. This feels very listy. But yeah, so not overly so, where it became a Battle Tomes book checklist, but since Dalchian and his warband largely didn't have any agency throughout the book, there was a lot of and then he went there, and then he did this, and then he spoke to that. I suppose it's more of a symptom of the story, but still, until you get to like the latter half of the book, it doesn't break into the therefore territory. You also don't get a set like antagonist. I won't go so far as to say it's a con, and this may have been an intention to add to the notion that Dalchian's warband truly is on the brink, but between Jathok and his abyssal kindred, Gorelord Thalisicus and the Crimson Slaughter, the numerous Imperial fleet elements they run into, and the Black Ship, with the Sisters of Battle, the addition of some good old-fashioned backstabbing going on, like internally, like within his own warband, and with the other, traitor Astartes elements, it does feel like literally everything is trying to kill off Dalchian and his Night Lords to an almost like comedic degree. So it's truly a John Wick moment, except the Expendables would probably be the better comparison here. In any case, we move on to the pros. The writing is great. Every scene has an undercurrent of emotion, as in like what Vincent is wanting you to feel during the scene is actually like conveyed through descriptive imagery and dialogue that fits the tone. Some of my top picks were the opening scene with the Data Saint on Osimandius itself, where the Mechanicus are getting like picked off one by one by a barely seen shadow until the midnight clad Astartes was finally like revealed, and he's holding up the skull and with the spine still attached of the Data Saint, and then like there's a tech priest that's like was very much committed to getting this to transporting this Data Saint, because it's a holy object full of tons of embedded knowledge to a literal borehole that goes like several miles into the planet's crust. And he was like, I'm going to get her there, and I'm one of the only volunteers, and we're going to get this done. And then Dalchian was tasked with basically finding this Data Saint and bringing it back to Thalisicus to like present it as like fealty, basically, essentially. And this tech priests, tech priests, they're emotionally stunted. They always have like, oh, I cut my fear out hundreds of years ago and I don't even have lungs. They're actually bellows or something like that. And he's like, I haven't felt this feeling in years. And he's frozen in place and he can't move because there's this massive Astartes that's holding like a skinned, bloodied spinal column with a head attached in front of him of his data saint, and then he just gets murdered. So like another one was everything to do with the black ships, which does include a plasma moat. Like literally, it's they take plasma that's been routed from the ship's reactor and they make like a moat out of it, and it's just a really cool scene because they fight 4 Sisters of Silence right before, and then they drop a bridge, like they raise a bridge and then they drop a moat, and I'm just like, it's so metal. The rule of cool is so very much a thing in this book. The danger and the complexity of the labyrinth was also very, very nicely translated, and like enough to where I, as like the reader, was also annoyed at the dead ends and the traps that waylaid the progress of this like warband constantly. Like they were like, oh my god, another trap. Like why is this happening? Like what is this ship? Because like I have also never really been on a black ship. Like I have, because I've read enough books, but like usually these ships are not this way, which is why I dropped the whole lore thing where it's like this ship has to be special. But yeah, the pacing is to be commended. The exposition was the perfect mix of show and also tell. Overall, I think this story is like a solid read. So unless you're not a Night Lords fan, if you aren't a Night Lords fan, run away. Run away, never touch this book, because that is all this book is. Great off-the-wall plot with solid dialogue and a comprehensive understanding of what makes Warhammer like what it is. It's grimdark. This book knows it's grimdark. It doesn't try and be like, but there's honor, and it's like, no. These people are written perfectly. I can easily recommend this and place it in 2025's top reads. And with that is the end of the review. Thank you so much for listening and being here and listening to me speak about something that I pretty much only like, and everyone else is kind of just being like meh about. That's not true. If you're here, you probably like the setting. There's no way you're just reading listening to a review for no reason at all. Anyways, I'm not sure when the next time I post, because I'm in a flight program and I've got basically 2 weeks of flights left before I do my cert, like end of, it's an EOC. God, I'm forgetting what the acronym actually stands for. Basically, I'm getting my pilot's license, my private pilot's license, soonish. So for the next 2 weeks, I'm going to be pretty dialed into basically just studying and being a good student who's wanting to, so I can move on to getting my instrument certification, and then move on from that to get my commercial, and et cetera, et cetera. So point is, I don't know if I'm going to post next week or the week after that. So expect me in another like 3 weeks or so. I'm not going to be gone for that long. And after that, I'm going to be pretty much done with school for the next like 5 weeks. So you'll see me probably over post once this like 2 week period is over. But yeah, I just want to let you guys know so you didn't think this channel was going to become like super dead. But yeah, more like I wanted to explain my absence. I'm not sure what I'm going to do when I get back. If I get my grubby little hands on a bunch of orc stuff, then I am going to probably do the Grotsnick deep dive that I've been talking about for like the last 4 posts. And then from there, probably we'll see. I don't know. Anyways, thanks again. I'll see you guys around. Have a good one.